Brilliant. Thanks very much, Emma. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Tom Dixon. I'm an e-commerce specialist here at the e-exporting team in the Department for International Trade. Today we are joined by Ashley Maroney from OptiSeller, and today we're going to be talking about how to sell more using eBay SEO. Ashley is very kindly just screen now, so you'll see. There we go, he's got it straight away. So last month, if you joined us, we did a webinar all about the upcoming changes which have now happened on item specifics on eBay, which was really good, really interesting content. So we thought it'd be a good idea to delve a little bit deeper and go into more of the SEO side of things of eBay. Next slide, please, Ashley. So as I said, I'm joined by Ashley Maroney, who's Head of Partnerships at OptiSeller. Next slide, please, Ashley. So I'm just going to take a few moments before I hand over to Ashley to talk about the different types of support available from the Department for International Trade. So the department has a number of different services designed to help companies, whether you're looking to export to new markets or increase your sales in existing markets. The exporting team was set up in 2014. And like I say, that was to help UK companies who are looking to export through online channels specifically. So there are four key services on your screen that we offer. First of all, we partner with marketplaces around the world, one of those being eBay. In some cases, we've negotiated some exclusive deals with those marketplaces. It might be a reduction in platform fees or reduced commission rates or other introductory offers. Secondly, we have a tool called Selling Online Overseas. I'll show you a bit more about that in an upcoming slide. Thirdly, we run what we call great promotions with our partner marketplaces. So this is where we've negotiated some free merchandising adverts for brands which typically appear on the marketplace homepage. We've seen some really great success through those promotions for UK businesses. And finally, our final key service, which I think is probably one of our most important services, is our network of e-commerce advisors. They're located around the UK. And what they do is they help businesses one-to-one, face-to-face or over Teams in the new world, with anything from troubleshooting marketplace seller account issues, introducing logistics suppliers, working with integrators, and so on. So absolutely anything to do with e-commerce. If you haven't already, do get in touch with your local DIT office, and they should be able to help. If you just move on to the next slide, please, Ashley. So the slide on your screen now shows the great.gov.uk website. You may have seen it before. This shows you where you can find a bit more about the DIT e-exporting programme. You can also find some really great case studies of UK businesses that have done well on marketplaces. And it's also where you can access the Selling Online Overseas tool that I mentioned, which is located under the services link on the top right-hand corner. Just flip to the next slide, please, Ashley. So this is what the Selling Online Overseas tool looks like. It's pretty much a marketplace finder. So on the left-hand side, you select the category of products that you sell. So it might be fashion, or it might be automated parts, or it could be anything. So select your category on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the region or the country that you're interested in selling to. Hit find your marketplace, and what will happen is a bunch of different marketplaces will be displayed that we think might be suitable for your business. Next slide, please, Ashley. Once you click into one of those marketplaces, you'll be displayed a page that looks like this. This particular example is Amazon USA. And the search results will show you absolutely everything you need to know about the marketplace. So things like seller fees, payment info, any translation help that's needed. So everything you need to know about that marketplace should be on there. If you're interested in applying, hit the apply button. That will come through to us, and then we'll help you with that onboarding process. Getting online with that marketplace, we'll make some suggestions for some alternative marketplaces. So that is about it from me. So very sort of quick whistle-stop tour of the exporting program. I'm now going to hand over to Ashley for the main part of the presentation. We do have a Q&A at the end. So as Emma mentioned, please pop your questions into the Q&A section, not the chat, because we might not pick those up. So into the Q&A section, we'll do our best to get round to all the questions at the end. If we don't get round to all the questions, which does often happen because lots come in, we will send out on the follow-up, which will have all the slides and the recorded presentation all the sort of top level questions, and we'll try and get in touch with any individuals that haven't got their question answered. So please pop them into the Q&A. If they don't get answered, we'll get round to them post event. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ashley, who's going to take you through the main part of the presentation.
Thanks, Tom, and big thank you to DIT for giving us the opportunity to speak today. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ashley Maroney. I head up the partnerships team at OptiSeller. I've worked pretty extensively over the last 10 years with marketplaces and sellers, and actually for me, eBay was the first place that I ever made an online purchase, which I think was an Avisu hoodie. I think that's the first thing I ever bought online. Needless to say, I've been a big fan of eBay and a regular buyer and seller ever since. And throughout my career, I've been lucky enough to be involved in the launch of multiple eBay stores. So we're here today to talk about how to sell more with eBay SEO. And as you probably guessed from the title, that'll be a large portion of today's presentation. But I think it's equally important when we talk about how to sell more on eBay, to also look at how you need to manage your seller reputation. As to be honest, you can put a lot of work and effort into the data optimization, but if you're not carefully managing your seller ratings and reputation, you won't be as successful as you could be. One without the other won't work. So a quick look through today's agenda. I'll give a very quick introduction to OptiSeller, who we are and what we do. Then we'll get into the main details around SEO, what is eBay SEO and which areas we'll be focusing on. Then we'll have a look at the second half of what I mentioned just now, which is the seller rating and reputation. We'll also have a quick look at duplicate listings and unsold items. These are things that can also help you to unlock additional sales on eBay. And then I'll do a quick summary before we go into the Q&A. So just a quick introduction to OptiSeller for those of you who don't know us. We were founded in 2004 as an IT consultancy, and over the last 12 years, we've really focused on e-commerce, specializing in online marketplaces. We've got a great team, many of whom have joined us from eBay and partners that you'll already know in this industry sector, as well as a number of folk who've come from the retail industry itself. We have a number of team members who actually also, as well as working for us, run their own eBay and Shopify stores. So, similar to yourselves, they're experiencing a lot of the highs and lows of selling online, and it gives us great insight into the benefits of and challenges of doing so. Over the past 9 years or so of working with eBay sellers, we've developed a really deep understanding of both how eBay works and what is actually needed to be consistently successful on the eBay marketplace. And for us, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to have this opportunity today to share some of that knowledge and experience with you all. Put simply, we help retailers sell more online. It's never easy to do that. And really our goal is to find ways that we can help you unlock growth. We do that through 3 different competencies within our business. So I mentioned we started originally as a consultancy business, and part of that is helping sellers to onboard onto eBay. We also help hundreds of retailers who are already on the platform to identify and action growth opportunities every year. We have our own development team, so we're able to help integrate different systems, develop connectors between marketplaces and other tools, and generally find ways that we can help from a technical perspective to unlock growth for retailers and help them to scale their business. The third element for us is data optimization. It's a very large part of what we do, and for us, OptiSeller, our software platform, helps sellers to identify where they're missing key data points and provides an easy to use interface to enrich and complete their data. We ultimately believe that by optimizing your data, it will help you to continue to grow and see success. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like on eBay in conjunction with managing your seller reputation today. So before I go into too much detail around SEO, I think I was looking at an easy way to frame what is eBay SEO. I think it's not too different at all from the SEO that you do on your website. It's really helping sellers to find your listings. So by optimizing your data, including relevant keywords in your titles and descriptions, and finding ways that you can continue to differentiate yourself from your competitors. So here are the key things that we'll focus on in this particular section relating to eBay SEO. I think from our perspective, we look at optimizing your listings on eBay being a bit more of a science than an art form, and it can often feel a little bit overwhelming. It's something you shouldn't really worry about. What we've focused on today is breaking it down into manageable chunks, and we'll look at the different aspects of eBay optimization that you should consider to help drive your success on eBay and make your store as the best store it can be. So without any further delay, let's get into the details. We'll start with product categories. It might sound obvious, but the first thing you need to do is make sure you're listing in the right category. It's surprising actually that even some of the most experienced sellers on eBay can find this difficult at times, just because of the fact that there are so many categories. There's a lot of detail within the category structure on eBay. So the first thing to consider is what's the best category for the products that you're selling. When you start your listing, eBay will actually offer you some suggestions, but you need to consider if that is the right one for the item that you have. You're not only looking for the right category that describes the item you're selling, but you're also looking for one where the buyer demand is strong. So this is where people are often searching for products, and that might help you choose between two very similar categories. And speaking of which, there's also the opportunity to list, in some cases, to list your product in two categories at the same time. There are fees that apply to this, and you should only do so if the product is relevant to both categories. We'll talk a little bit about item specifics. As Tom mentioned at the beginning, we did a very in-depth session last month with our head of customer success in the build-up to the latest round of eBay mandates on item specifics, and that will be shared along with the presentation after this session with a recording of the video. From our perspective, I think item specifics are the attributes, the physical details of the items that you sell. So things such as the make, the brand, the model, size, type, color, style, etc. And they're structured to appear above your description, and essentially they help sellers to find the items they're looking for by searching for certain attributes within a product, or aspects as they're known on eBay, that meet the requirements of their particular product search. From our perspective, if you're looking at why item specifics are so important, for the majority of eBay sellers, they will do some form of a filtered search, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But if you're not entering details into item specifics, then you will disappear from search results. It's also important to consider that eBay are continually looking to improve customer experience. So they're reviewing which item specifics should become mandatory within certain categories, and this is part of the process that we mentioned earlier with the mandated changes. So the status of these item specifics is likely to vary over time. As an absolute minimum, you need to keep them updated in line with eBay's mandates, but what we'll focus on in this section is what is the value of actually going over and above the minimum requirement, and what can that help you with as part of your search to find additional sales on eBay. So there are 4 different categories of item specifics. Required, which is what I've just mentioned, that are mandated on eBay. So you must actually complete the required item specifics in order to publish a new listing or update an existing listing. Required soon, they will be potentially the next round of aspects that will be required and become mandatory. So it's really worth completing them early, getting them in early. And recommended, they're not mandated, but they're still used quite frequently by buyers. So there's some advantages here to actually spending some additional time and putting in the recommended item specifics. They may make a difference between a buyer who's already made their mind up as to what they're looking for, choosing to purchase from you or from someone else who has completed these item specifics because they've used the filters to create a search and your listing has disappeared because you haven't entered them. And additional item specifics. So these again aren't as commonly searched for as the recommended item specifics, but again, it could still help make a difference in the success of your listing being found through search. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the stats that came out of eBay Connect last year was that more than half of eBay searches include an item specific or some level of filtering. For certain categories like fashion, this is even higher, where 80% of eBay customers are likely to filter using item specifics in women's fashion, for example. Again, just to reinforce the message here, really, completing item specifics is essential to ensure that your products are found in both on both eBay's internal search and external search engines. So populating these values will really help you to appear better in filtered searches on eBay, and also help eBay drive more traffic to the platform and to your listings. So just a quick summary of what I've gone through there in terms of why it's worth investing the time in completing item specifics. From our perspective, what we've seen from sellers and the feedback we get is that for those who have taken the time to complete not just the mandated item specifics, but the recommended and additional, they've actually seen an increase in performance. So more people actually viewing the listings, more people then converting and generating more sales for that particular seller. And we've got a great example of that here with curated collectibles. In their case, they had a number of listings that hadn't actually generated any sales at all. And by optimizing just the item specifics within 24 hours, they were generating sales from these listings. So I'll move on now to talk about product identifiers and why they're important. I expect that most of you will be familiar with the concept of a global trade item number, or a GTIN, which is typically found on packaging labels for products. They form multiple different types, and within the UK and Europe, I typically see MPNs and EANs most commonly, sometimes product codes, universal product codes, and for those selling books, ISBNs. They're a universal standard that really help people to identify products, unique products, and understand that they are indeed an authentic item. So they're really important on eBay, and they are mandated in a number of specific product categories. There are certain advantages for you to actually use them even if they're not mandated, one of which is the fact that you can link to the eBay catalog, which already has images and very rich data, as you can see in the example on the right of the Converse trainers. They also help you with automatic categorization, getting information on trends and comparing your listing to others. And again, they help to improve your ranking on eBay search, Google search, and create more impressions using cross promotions. So this is something from eBay seller guidance, and we've included the link here so that you can actually view this for yourselves. But this is, a good example of where you can potentially get your listings to appear within Google Shopping. You need to ensure that you're including both product identifiers and item specifics to do so, and that your images meet all of eBay's requirements for images, so avoiding things like watermarks and text and having a white background, etc. Again, this will help you to drive more traffic to your listing, more visibility, more opportunity to create sales. So now we'll talk a little bit about listing titles. It's quite interesting, I think, from what we've seen from the number of sellers that we've worked on, that not everyone spends the time on optimizing their listing titles, and you'll see lots of listings for similar items with very similar titles. On eBay, you've got up to 80 characters to use. And again, what we often see is that people aren't using 80 characters, they're using far less. So there's an opportunity to add in another keyword or another reference point that will help someone to find your listing. Our view is that the ideal title length should be between 70 to 80 characters, and titles should be descriptive as well as attractive and compelling. You should include relevant keywords wherever you can, but don't just spam the title with lots of keywords. I think that was something that maybe people did on eBay 10, 15 years ago. And don't use acronyms. Make sure that they can be read and understood by a person as well as by computers. I would also consider adding item specifics, relevant item specifics to your title. And you can see some great examples here again from eBay's help pages, particularly in the tech category where they've included an MPN. which is really helpful when you've got lots of different versions of a particular Apple product or a laptop, and someone already has in mind the exact model they're looking for. They're just looking to find potentially the best price with the best shipping conditions so they can get that item to them quickly. So I mentioned keywords earlier, and we'll spend a couple of minutes now looking at keywords and why they're important. Essentially, keywords are words that people use in a search query, very, very similar to what they would do on Google and other search engines. And you would use them to describe your item and help buyers to actually find your listing on eBay. So just a few tips now on how you can leverage keywords. As I mentioned earlier, very, very similar to the process you would go through for using SEO or search keywords for any of the popular search engines. Would suggest that you use between 3 to 5 keywords in your listing title and item description. As I mentioned earlier, avoid keyword spamming. Keywords should be applied in a very natural way so that the title still reads. And as I mentioned before, including product identifiers will also help. We also suggest that you use alt tags in your HTML or keywords to accompany your images so that they can be read as well. So we mentioned product descriptions a moment ago, and I think similar to titles, there's an opportunity here for you to be able to optimize your descriptions to provide a better shopping experience when people view your listings in your eBay store. The descriptions should clearly describe your product and the key information. It's to your advantage to structure features and benefits, but obviously stick to the facts around the product. And aim to keep your descriptions concise. More than 50% of sales happen now on mobile, so having a concise, punchy description will be helpful to be viewed on a small screen or device. Consider how you would want to read the description if you were the buyer. Put yourselves in their shoes. That often helps to look at all of those points I've just mentioned and make sure, is it readable? Is it interesting? Does it give me the key information that I would want to know quickly? And again, keywords should make up about 5 to 7% of the description. So whilst not strictly part of eBay SEO, I thought it was worth mentioning eBay listing templates and images, as there's opportunities here to do some optimization that can help you to increase your conversion and sales on eBay. So we've got an example here of an Argos listing template, and you don't need to be a massive retail powerhouse like Argos to use listing templates. They're a great opportunity for you to be able to concisely present all of the information around the product you're selling, but also cross-promote other items, and then give the seller key information about your policy terms and other items and categories that you sell in. So it's a really neat way of professionally presenting not only your product, but yourself as a seller. And it can really make the difference. Even if you're a small seller, you have the opportunity to use listing templates. It can really make a difference in you, getting a conversion and making a sale. The other thing to look at is images. eBay has a very clear policy as to what their expectations are on images. And what we see is a lot of people don't necessarily take advantage of putting multiple images in for their product. It's really important. You've got up to 12 images that you can use. Use as many as makes sense, as many as you have. And you can see in this example here, it's a nice clear white background, and you've got these pair of trainers from pretty much all angles. What's also important is that if you have variations, so for example, if these trainers came in red, green, blue, yellow, orange, for example, that you've got images, multiple images for each variation as well. There's nothing more disappointing from a buyer's perspective to click on the orange ones and you don't see an image, you see a blue one instead, or there's no image at all. So moving on now to seller rating and reputation. There's 5 key aspects that we're going to cover off in this section. I would expect that most of you are familiar with this, but there's probably going to be a few points in here that will help you towards just managing this aspect of your seller experience on eBay. From our perspective, as I mentioned earlier, it's really, really important that you not only look at what we've just gone through in terms of optimizing your data, but also really carefully managing your seller reputation and ratings on eBay. So the first place to start is detailed seller ratings. After every transaction, the buyer has the opportunity to rate their experience by leaving the seller a rating. as well as feedback, which we'll cover in the next slide. Obviously, the seller has the opportunity to leave a rating for the buyer as well. Sorry, feedback for the buyer, which we'll cover in a moment. And detailed seller ratings are really, really important because they have an influence over where your listings will rank in search results. So in conjunction with what we looked at earlier, if you've done all of the hard work to optimize your data, to include relevant keywords, to ensure you've got product identifiers, to include not just the mandatory, the minimum item specifics, but the required soon and recommended ones, don't let that hard work go to waste. Put the time in to ensure that you are really carefully managing the customer's experience in buying items from your store. And it's just absolutely critical. So from our perspective, there are a number of different avenues to consider here. And if you're a new seller on eBay, detailed seller ratings will appear after you have 10 ratings, but they won't affect your feedback score, which we'll look at now. So I think if you look at the way that eBay is structured, as I mentioned earlier, both buyers and sellers have the opportunity to give feedback after a transaction. And this is what has actually helped to shape the unique member community on eBay over the past 25 years. Feedback is calculated over the past 12 months and is key to building trust with buyers and converting listing viewers into sales. In this example, Kfast are doing an amazing job. I think it's the dream feedback scenario, 100% positive feedback. They've obviously been selling on eBay a long time. I think I opened my eBay account about a month before they did, and they have a shooting silver star, which denotes they've got a 1 million feedback score. So obviously that's taken a lot of time to build up that volume of sales, but we can all strive towards having a really high positive feedback score, and ultimately looking at ways that you can continue to deliver an amazing experience for customers. At some point, though, it is inevitable that there may be some negative feedback. Some things are beyond your control, whether that's something to do with delivery, or perhaps the item which you're selling, which maybe not something that you've manufactured, is faulty. And it's really, really important, I think, from from a buyer's point of view and from an eBay perspective, that when you do get negative feedback, respond to it quickly. Take the opportunity, take the time to actually reply, explain what the issue is and what you've done to resolve it. And it's an opportunity to turn a negative into a positive, so you can showcase, how great your customer service is as well. Something that I read earlier this week in the news, interestingly, is that on eBay US, they've now extended feedback from 80 characters to 500 characters. I don't know when or if that will come to eBay UK, but often those things do follow at some point. But that's quite interesting, as it gives you an opportunity, or gives people the opportunity to give further explanation as to why they've had a good or bad experience in buying from a seller. So we'll talk about shipping quickly and why that's important. And I think the most obvious thing that I'm sure most of you will be aware of is that free shipping is actually part of eBay's search algorithm. So wherever you can, it's important that you include a free shipping option, as it will help to increase visibility on your listings. You should also consider giving buyers the opportunity to choose which shipping option they want. In some cases, potentially they want a nominated day, or they're not too fussed about getting it fast. So providing options will be beneficial to you. And you should look at reviewing your delivery methods and aim to include the 3-day shipping badge on your listings, which has now replaced fast and free. I think there's opportunities here to differentiate yourself from your competitors. And again, offering multiple shipping options can help you to do that. So dispatch time is important. I think for most buyers, they're potentially looking to receive their items quickly, and if you've committed to dispatching it within a certain time frame, you need to keep to that. Essentially, even at busy times, if you can, aim for same day or 1-day dispatch. Otherwise, you may find that the buyer actually goes somewhere else if it's going to take too long for the item to get there. And if you use next day guaranteed, you can extend the number of your trading days as well. For some of you who work with third-party fulfillment providers, talk to them about what shipping options they've got that can help you to deliver the best possible experience. And it's also important to include the item location where you can on your listings, as it will help to accurately calculate both the posting cost and the shipping times. eBay's recommendation is that your dispatch time should be within 2 days maximum. So always keep to that if you can't do it quicker. Again, another area that you can consider to differentiate yourself in terms of your competitors is your returns policy. If you're able to offer a longer returns period, so for some sellers they'll offer 14 days, some will be 28. We generally find that 30 days performs well and is generally in line with industry standards, but it can help increase the likelihood of actually generating a sale versus a competitor. There's also evidence to suggest that having free returns may also result in having lower returns as well. And it gives buyers the confidence that should the item not fit, should it be not exactly what they're after, there is a free returns window for them as well. And again, just coming back to competitors, I think it's important for anyone who sells on eBay to look at who they are competing with, who is selling similar items, not just from a pricing point of view, but what are their policies? So all the things that we've just reviewed now in terms of shipping and dispatch times and returns, etc. Keep on top of that and have a look and see, are there opportunities for you to differentiate your store and your seller experience from that of your competition. So I'm going to move on to talk about a couple of other things that, again, they're not necessarily part of eBay SEO and not necessarily part of seller reputation, but they're equally important and opportunities for you to potentially optimize and gain more visibility and sales on eBay. I think one of the biggest challenges with selling thousands of items on eBay is the potential to have a duplicate listing. So where you've listed the same item more than once. This can often be the case where you're selling component parts, whether that's vehicle parts or parts for electronic items, etc., where you're likely to have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or potentially into the millions of listings. And it's something that's important for you to manage carefully, because duplicate listings will be removed by eBay, and ultimately you may find that you have one listing out of all of them that's generating the most sales, but that may end up being the listing that is ultimately removed, harming your sales history for that particular item. So you want to keep on top of it and make sure that if there are any duplicates, you choose which listing rather that you keep, the one with the most sales history, and you remove all of the duplicates. I mean, it's worth spending the time on this, because you don't want to lose out on any sales, especially not in the build up to any peak shopping periods. And there are tools available that can help you with the process. There's some things that we do at OptiSeller, and there's other tools available that can also help. Unsold items. Again, we consider best practice here to be if a listing hasn't generated a sale within the last 90 days, it's probably an opportunity for you to take down that listing, make some changes, and then republish the listing. And the sort of things that we would suggest is looking at, as we've talked about today already, look at the titles, look at potentially adding keywords, adding more item specifics. Are you using all the characters that are available to you in your title? Do you have any new images or alternative images that you can add? Is there something you can add to the description that would help? For poor performing listings, you may even want to set up where they've got a variation. You may want to set up a different color or size variation so that you have a different lead product. So, for example, in a simple sense, a red jumper may actually help a black jumper to sell, or vice versa. And I think from our perspective, before you start immediately reducing your prices, try doing some of these things first. See if that makes a difference. See if that helps you to rank better. And when you publish a new listing, you'll automatically kind of have the opportunity to start afresh. And then if that beds in with all of the hard work that you've done with your data optimization, you may see that actually proves successful without you having to lower your price and potentially reduce your margin. So just to wrap up the key points that we've covered today, I think, from our perspective, there's a number of things that hopefully you'll take away from today's session. First of all, making sure you're listing in the right category. As we talked about earlier, there's a lot of different categories and subcategories on eBay, and there's the opportunity for you to potentially list in 2 categories if your product is relevant to both. And you should also look at, which category, if you're choosing one, which one maybe is the most relevant, but also has the most buyer demand, the highest buyer demand, to help your listing see success. We talk to people day in, day out about the value of completing item specifics. It really can't be overlooked. It's so important that you not only invest the time in completing the minimum, the mandated item specifics, but you look at what's coming soon and you look at recommended, and where you've got time, you will get a good return on the time you invest in adding additional item specifics, as they will help you with filtered searches. They will help you to rank well in eBay searches, and they'll potentially help you to get your listings viewable on Google and external search engines. They can also make the difference when someone is actually looking through, is on your listing page, they found your listing, and they're looking through the item specifics to see if it actually does meet their requirement. You might have all that information in the description, that's great, but if you haven't put it in the actual fields in the item specifics, as soon as someone starts a filtered search, your listing's not going to be found. You will drop out. We talked as well about the required product identifiers. I think you can look at how you can include them within titles potentially, and there are some good examples there of electronics products where it would be very relevant to do so. And I think for those who are searching for a specific item, they may have an MPN or a model number that they're looking for very specifically, and if they enter that into search, then if you've included that, they will find your listing. It's also important because not only because in certain categories it's mandated, but again, it helps you with search ranking and getting listings visible from external search engines. Using keywords in your titles and descriptions. So as we talked about earlier, about 5 to 7% of your titles and descriptions should be made from keywords. These should be relevant keywords that will help the buyer to find your listing and will help them to make a decision to purchase. And you should also ensure that your titles and descriptions are readable, that they make sense to anyone who is actually viewing the listing. We also touched on the importance of having high quality product images. So as I mentioned earlier, eBay has minimum requirements, and we gave a good example of what that could look like. But make sure that you're using as many images as you can. They can again make a difference between someone clicking on your listing from search and then someone browsing that search page, your listing, and making a decision to purchase. So all of those elements really have been focused on the data optimization aspect, and I just want to reinforce this point that one without the other doesn't work. So if you do all of that and you're not looking after your seller ratings, you're not managing your feedback or managing any negative feedback that comes up, then that is going to have an impact on your success on eBay. It's very visible what your feedback score is and what your feedback count is. So if you continue to build upon your success and people see that you're a very reputable seller, it can make a big difference in people choosing to buy from you or not if they've never bought from you before. And then your shipping options. So ensuring that you provide potentially fast and ideally free shipping is important, with short dispatch times so that people can get their items quickly. But also, as we said as well, providing multiple options for people so that they can choose a nominated day, or if you don't offer free shipping, that there is an express service available at a reasonable cost. And avoid creating duplicate listings and manage any that slip through. Remove them quickly before eBay removes them. Just keep on top of that as a process. Put it into your weekly management of your eBay store, and ensure that you keep on top of it. So I just want to talk quickly about a few ways that we help sellers at OptiSeller with eBay SEO. So we mentioned item specifics earlier, and I'll just give you a quick reminder of AspectFinder in a moment. We help people with buyer demand data. We provide a category lookup tool, which is currently available for any sellers to use. We provide services around data and listing optimization and listing templates, and we help with reports for duplicates and unsold duplicate listings and unsold items, so that you can, when you're managing a catalog of thousands of listings, you can quickly identify any duplicates or any listings that maybe gone stale or haven't had a sale within 60 to 90 days that you may want to consider revising and republishing. So when we built OptiSeller as a dashboard and a series of in-depth reports, really the framework that we built this around was, how to get your listings found on eBay and how to be successful in converting those listings into sales. So a lot of the data points that you would consider within eBay SEO that we've covered today are included within the dashboard view. So this is a very straightforward, easy to use dashboard that gives you an update and scans all of your listings and tells you where you're missing data. It will give you a view on any duplicates. It will also call out where you've got titles that are under 70 characters. It will look where you're missing, it will highlight where you're missing any item specifics, and it will give you a view on the quality of the item specifics that you're using. It gives you a view on all the different shipping options that you offer, where you're missing any images. And if you're a parts and accessories seller within the automotive category, where you're missing any fitment data. We also have a trends report, so you can see week on week how you're performing. We would hope that anyone who uses our tool over a period of time would see anything that's highlighted initially in red turn into amber and then green for things like duplicate listings or titles that should be optimized or missing item specifics. But it's a very easy way to look through all of your listings and identify where you should focus your time and effort to make improvements and adjustments that will help you to increase your overall sales volume. It also gives you a quick view on what your sales history is, how many listings you currently have live, your conversion rate, your feedback score, and any products that don't have product identifiers or GTINs attached to them. And as I mentioned earlier, AspectFinder. So for those of you who aren't already using this, you should be. It's available for you to use free of charge, courtesy of eBay, until the end of June this year. And it's a really easy to use tool that will go one step further than the dashboard and provide you with the means to actually optimize any listings that are missing item specifics, broken down into those 4 categories that I mentioned earlier, between required, required soon, additional and optional. And it's an easy way for you to invest some time on a daily, weekly basis to building up the item specifics on your listings and helping you to gain more visibility in eBay search and attract more buyers to your listing. So don't just take our word for it. We thrive on customer feedback, and we've had some great feedback from sellers who've been using AspectFinder and a number of our tools over the past couple of years. Really, I think that the takeaway from this is that it works. It works very well, and that for some sellers, in the case of DIY car service parts, where they actually sold more in 8 weeks, having optimized 100 listings through AspectFinder than they had done in the previous 12 months, which is, I think, a pretty powerful result for them as a business, and a good justification for them to then look at how they can spend more time optimizing more of their listings and adding more item specifics if they've already seen great success with a number of listings that perhaps weren't generating as many sales as they thought they would. So before we move into the Q&A, as Tom mentioned at the beginning, we often get a lot of questions on this particular topic. So what we will be doing is, for all the questions that you submit through here today, if we don't get a chance to cover them, then we will be actually putting together an FAQ. So we'll respond in writing for anything that we don't cover in today's session. So please do submit any questions that you've got, and that will go out with the slides after the session. So I will firstly thank you all for joining today, for your time and attention, and I'm going to hand back to Tom and we'll do the Q&A.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ashley. I think that was really, really good content there, and really sort of highlights that best practice of what to do with eBay and how to optimize those listings. I think a lot of the time, in particular with eBay, it can be quite difficult to know where to start, what to prioritize, what to do, what tools are out there. So I think it gives a really good, like I say, best practice on what to do with eBay listings. So we're just going to move into the Q&A. As Ashley mentioned, we're not going to get through all the questions, unfortunately. There's lots coming in, so we will send out, as Ashley said, an FAQ style follow up on the email that you'll receive with the slides and the recording within the next few days. So if it doesn't get answered now, hopefully it'll get answered within the next few days, but we'll dive straight in. So first question, Ashley, put you right on the spot after you've been speaking for half an hour, but hopefully you're still good for another 10 minutes or so. First question, which elements are most important for SEO success on eBay? So we've covered off quite a lot of things there, and I know you mentioned that one thing doesn't work without the other thing, but if there was sort of the most important element or the most important elements to consider, which would you say they were?
Thanks, Tom. It's a really good question. It's quite a hard one to answer because I don't think it's a case of singling out a particular item. You need to do a good job on all of them. I know that sounds quite tough, but that was the point of today's session, is that there's a lot involved and you need to keep on top of it. It's not a case of posting your listings and they're done. You need to continue to review them, optimize them, as we talked about. But having a keyword rich title and adding as many relevant item specifics as you can, will get you, part of the way. But as we talked about earlier, if your ratings and feedback and things like that are letting you down, then you may not be ranking or converting as highly as you potentially could. So I think it is really a case of keeping on top of all of it. And if you don't already have this built into your process or the tools you use, find a way to review this daily. Keep on top of it. It's really, really important.
Yeah, I think I'd echo those points there, Actually, I think sometimes it can just be quite overwhelming, and a lot of the time businesses are very focused on getting new listings live, and it can feel like quite a task to go through old listings and optimize those listings. So it's just a case, again, same with reporting and things like that, just keeping on top of it on a daily basis if possible. So thanks for that, Ashley. Next question. This question's from Karen and a couple of others actually. So I'll try and cover it off in one question. I understand how SEO on eBay works and that sales history and feedback is key, but as a new seller with zero sales history, how can I build these quickly? So I think this is an overriding question. Lots of new sellers that go onto eBay or other marketplaces for that matter. How do they generate that feedback, that SEO history that's so important to generate future sales?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think when you're new on eBay, then sales velocity and building feedback is really key. But how do you do that? Well, I think first of all, you need to really over-index. So make sure if you get any questions, answer them quickly. Aim to exceed the shipping time expectations. Potentially look at which products you're going to list first. Try and find some products maybe that you can list at a competitive price. Items that will sell quite quickly, and that you're able to then build that sales history and that feedback up quite quickly, trying to get through the initial phases. You may also want to consider putting a small budget into doing things like sponsored listings, which will help boost the visibility of your listings and boost your ranking. And then as things start to naturally bed in and you build up that sales history, you build up the DSRs and the feedback, etc., and you're optimizing your item specifics, titles and descriptions as we talked about, then you can potentially ease back on any budget that you've put towards sponsored listings, or use it to apply for new products that you list. So I hope that.
Thanks, Ashley. And I think a lot with new sellers, what would your advice be on, the temptation is always there. You've got friends and family who are automatically going to be sort of brand champions, if you like. Is there any sort of best practice around that? Do it, don't do it?
I think, at the end of the day, if your friends and family want to buy from your eBay store, that's great. Obviously, what you want to be doing is, looking at ways that you can really deliver a great experience on eBay. And as I said a moment ago, I think over-indexing in the early stages, really kind of making sure that you're getting products out the door, ahead of the dispatch times, that you're delighting the customer, that you're leaving the buyer feedback, and if they don't leave you feedback, you have the opportunity to ask them to leave feedback. So do those sorts of things as well. That will help. But as I say, if you've got friends and family that ultimately will buy from your eBay store to help you get going, then great.
Brilliant, thanks, Ashley. I'll move on to the next question, which It's similar to the ones before, but probably important to cover off again. Will my listings rank reasonably high if I only focus on the required item specifics, but don't have time to do the rest? So the ones that aren't mandated, I guess.
Yeah, so I think this might vary a little bit by category, but our advice is still the same as we said earlier. I think if you only do the minimum, how many of your competitors maybe have only done the minimum? And if you've all got you're selling the same sort of products and you've got the same item specifics, how are you differentiating yourself? I think, that's really an opportunity for you. Those who take the time, they invest in the time to complete item specifics. So I mentioned earlier, AspectFinder is a free tool courtesy of eBay until the end of June that makes it much easier for you to do this, and it provides recommendations as to which item specific value you should provide, or if it can't make a recommendation, it shows you which are the values that eBay automatically recognizes. It's worth doing that. It really is going beyond the minimum to differentiate your listings, your eBay store, your seller experience from that of your competitors.
Brilliant, thanks again. So time for a couple more questions. This question's come in a few times, so we'll ask this one. If titles are supposed to be a certain length, won't adding words for the sake of it harm your listings rather than boost performance? I'm just going to add on to that question just a little bit from another question from Andrew. And this is around variation title listings. So for instance, we sell toys, and for each series of toys, there might be, say, 5 characters in the assortment. In such instances, each character would be one of the product variations on the listing. The listing can have a title max 80 characters, and a variation can have a title length of 50. So I guess it's a two-part question, Ashley. First of all, won't adding words for the sake of it harm your listings rather than boost performance? And then any guidance on titles for variation listings, which I know is important for a lot of sellers.
Yeah, I think, the opportunities there, you've got 80 characters. I think if you use them sensibly, as we talked about, maybe include an item specific, or if you haven't already included it and it's relevant, a product identifier within the title or additional keywords. Again, it's worth investing the time to make use of the characters you have available. I think the variation listings, then, yeah, you've got the opportunity there to to actually put some keywords in that are relevant to the actual variation item. So if it's toys and characters and what have you, then you would want to include the name of the individual characters within those titles.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Got time for maybe one or two more. I've just lost the question I was going to ask as well, so bear with me 1 second. Can't find it now, but there was a question. It was a good question around categories, and we touched on this right at the top of the presentation about first of all making sure that you're listing in the correct category. Is there any advice on choosing the right category? I know this sounds like a simple thing, but a lot of the time, some categories will be more popular than others, so it might be a bit of a task to decide which category you should be listing in. Is there any advice around, should you list in the more popular category, or should you list in the more relevant category? I know that might be a bit of a tricky one, actually, but
I think it's a balance. First of all, you need to make sure that the category is relevant to the item that you're selling. If you're selling in the wrong category, it's really going to impact your sales, even if the buyer demand might be higher in that other category. But there's also the opportunities we mentioned earlier to list in 2 categories. So you might be in a scenario where there's 2 that are relevant. One has higher buyer demand than the other, but I just think of an example. I showed an example of trainers earlier, so they could go into sports shoes as well as kind of shoes, trainers, etc. So they could go into sports, could go into clothes, shoes, accessories. So you might want to do that and take advantage of the opportunity to list in both categories, where you've got the absolute most relevant one and the second most relevant one that has higher buyer demand. But obviously there are fees that potentially apply depending on what store you've got with eBay if you're going to list in a second category. But it's definitely worth looking at looking at the buyer demand. If you're choosing between 2 that are relevant, that might help sway your decision if you're only going to list in one.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ashley. I think we've got time for one more today. As we've mentioned a few times now, we will follow up with when the recording is sent out along with the slides. So look out for that email with follow-up. I'm just going to ask one more. This is from Phil. Hi, first of all, thanks for some great info. I'm used to maintaining our fast and free badge, but the new 3-day delivery label is being used. Do you know how, first of all, people qualify to get that badge? Are you aware of that badge? Is it a new thing? Any sort of insight into the new 3-day delivery label?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it may be something that we follow up on in a bit more depth on the FAQ afterwards. But essentially, the 3-day badge is getting the item to the buyer within 3 days of the point of ordering. So 3 working days.
Yeah, I imagine eBay sort of keep on track and look at seller feedback to get that. So if you're delivering things within 3 days, then it should appear relatively soon. But I'm sure we can look into some more stuff about that for the follow-up email. What I'm gonna stop there. Sorry to anyone that hasn't had their question answered today. We will, like I say, do our best to get those followed up. Just wanted to take this opportunity, first of all, for all the participants for joining today. It's been a really busy session with lots of questions coming in, and hopefully you've had some really good, tangible things to take away. Second of all, I'd like to thank Ashley and OptiSeller for putting together some really great content and letting us know about those free tools that are available. The AspectFinder tool will also put some information about how to sign up for that, especially because it's free up until the end of June. So that's really great. So once again, like to thank everybody for joining. Like to thank Ashley. I'm going to wrap the session up there, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, DIT.
Thanks, Ashley. Bye now.